Let's quickly move into some other issues. Insurgency is something that that confronts us, and it's giving us a sad taste in the mouth. And one would think that with what is going on in the country is not something we will ever envisaged as a people. How do you hope that your party will handle it if you get it?
I think that the first thing to understand is that insurgency, this current insurgency, is one which requires the commander-in-chief to lead from the front. The commander-in-chief simply has to be the commander-in-chief, and he must lead from the front. He must set the example by leadership from the front. The second thing is that one of the problems that I think bedeviled this the way this was handled, was that rather than face up to the challenge of the insurgency, the government preferred to politicize it, blame the opposition for the insurgency, and all of those kinds of things. Whereas what was required, and at that moment what was required, was to galvanize the entire society, political parties, everywhere where you've seen insurgency, Syria and all those places, Pakistan. The government in power galvanizes the entire society behind it. Bipartisan, multi-party meetings are held to ensure that the threat on the territorial integrity of the country is contained. You don't politicize those kinds of issues. That's a wrong thing to do. And what this government will do, what the government of General Buhari, by the grace of God, will do in 2015, will be first to ensure that the entire nation is behind all of the efforts, and we will deal with this on a bipartisan basis, on a multi-party basis.
You think the entire nation is not behind the efforts of the government of the day?
It's very difficult to expect that when you're accusing people left and right.
With some of the challenges, will the challenges go away if your party gets?
Yes, because you'll approach it correctly. You'll approach it correctly. One of the most important things to do is to ensure that you do not look for instance, we certainly will not be blaming or looking for faults in the PDP or saying, oh, the PDP is responsible for the insurgency. You're a government. You want to solve the problem. You can't politicize the problem. If you do, then you're going to have a situation where rather than facing the central challenge, you are busy arguing about who is responsible. When you know that the opposition is not responsible, everybody knows that the opposition cannot be responsible.
The insecurity in the Northeast is one issue.
Yes.
Curbing and curtailing the insecurity situation that bedeviled Nigeria Delta for a long time, which of course the amnesty program came and brought to his news. How does your party hope? Is your party thinking about that kind of situation?
I was actually trying to outline what the party's policy on this is. As I said, the commander-in-chief leads from the front. We seek the support of every political party, every political association, every group behind the government. The third thing is that we equip our military properly. We ensure that the military is well equipped for the task that faces it. And the Nigerian military needs to be well equipped. Those gentlemen who are in the Nigerian military are some of the best and finest soldiers that you'll find anywhere. I worked with many of them when I was working with the UN in Somalia. One particular Nigerian was in the military police, Pat Akem. He was the one responsible for the entire UNISOM operation, policing the entire UNISOM operation, a military officer. Everybody on the mission wanted Nigerian troops to work with them. So the Nigerian troops are great. They are fine soldiers. What they need is equipment and motivation, and that ought to be done. The fourth thing is that we have to deal with the problems of poverty. We have to deal with it. If you don't deal with the problems of poverty, especially in the north, where if you look at the indices, there's even greater poverty than anywhere else. If you don't deal with the problems of poverty and unemployment, you're going to have a situation where the Boko Haram have a steady source of a steady pool of men, young men, prepared to go along with it on the promise that wherever they go, if they manage to steal anything or loot anything, including women, it will be theirs.
All right, just
Yes.
quickly, so that we the issue of economy, the austerity measures, the state of the naira, dwindling oil prices, the economy surely is in some very challenging moment at this time. Does your party have the answer to a crisis that seems to have a global outlook?
Let me explain that. Let me explain that. That the problem of the Nigerian economy, in my own opinion, first is management of resources, and that is very critical to the way that the APC government will deal with issues. Nigeria's problem is not just a matter of dwindling resources. No, it is a problem of management of resources, and we mustn't belittle that in any way. And let me explain why that is the case. If you look at some of the issues surrounding the Nigerian economy, one of the major things you find is the complete lack of accountability. We were told by the central bank governor at some point that 20 billion, that's almost 3.3 trillion, was unexplained, unaccounted for. Now that is a significant loss. How about 8 billion in the kerosene subsidy scam? And all of these billions that are missing. What a government needs to do is, first of all, to ensure that it is transparent, especially in the accounting for the major resource of this country, which is oil. It must be transparent. That must be clear for all to see. If you don't manage resources well, it doesn't matter how much oil is. Even if oil goes to $500 a barrel, don't forget that we've had, for 5 years consistently, the highest oil prices that we've ever known in the history of our oil industry. And after those 5 years, see where we are. So it really doesn't matter how much oil costs. It doesn't matter whether resources are dwindling or going up. If you don't manage resources well, if you're not accountable, if you don't fight corruption, especially in the oil industry and generally in the public space, you're going to find exactly the same problem. We'll be where we are today, and we will carry on as if this is a global problem and we're faced with a global problem. So I think it's a management of resources issue.
So briefly, how do you hope to tackle corruption?
First, now that's very important. The most important thing first of all, we know that leadership is primary. There is no one who does not accept that General Buhari is a person known for his stand on corruption. Now that is very important because the president must have a strong anti-corruption stand. Now, when the president has a strong anti-corruption stand and the institutions are allowed to function, which is, if you look in our manifesto, that's exactly what we intend to do. The president has the political will to fight corruption. The institutions are built up, the EFCC, ICPC, NFIU, all of the institutions that are concerned with the anti-corruption struggle are allowed to work, and they're allowed to do their business, and everybody realizes that there will be a consequence for corruption, that there will be consequence. The moment people understand that there will be consequence for corruption, everybody's behavior is modified. If you think that there will be no consequence, which generally seems to be the case, then the impunity will continue.
All right. Professor Osinbajo,
yes.
Tell me, do you have the blessings of your general overseer, Pastor Adeboye, you contesting for a vice presidential seat?
Let me say that Pastor Adeboye, of course, I mean, he's someone who not only is he my spiritual father, and I must consult with him before I take any major steps, especially because I'm also a pastor under him. You know, I would certainly not contest elections or do any public thing without at least seeking his consent and ensuring that I discuss it with him in full. Yes.
Interesting. Let me quickly take you to this visual. Of course, I know that we've seen some sort of a tacit endorsement of President Jonathan by the General Overseer. If you remember this very event in 2014, when President Goodluck Jonathan visited your church at Banana Island, you were the one that received him and introduced him. Of course, you probably didn't know that you were you were going to be a vice presidential candidate of your party. So if there's some form of endorsement have come from your general overseer, isn't that a conflict of interest now?
First,
okay, that's it.
Do you want me to answer the question? Okay.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, so that's you in the February 16, 2014, receiving President Jonathan. Of course, the church, Pastor Adeboye, some form of endorsement. We've seen him pray for President Jonathan at the Redemption Camp in 2010.
But let me explain. First of all, the clip that you have shown was Pastor Adeboye in our church, and President Jonathan chose the same occasion because he wanted to worship in the same church where Pastor Adeboye was, chose the same occasion to visit our church. And of course, if the president chooses to come to our church every Sunday, we will openly and happily welcome him. Of course, we'll welcome him. Right. That is not an endorsement of the president. The mere fact that we welcome him. If you come to my church, I'll be happy to welcome you. If the president comes, I'll be happy to welcome him. If the entire opposition comes to church, we'll be happy to welcome him.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. So you are saying that you will swim against your party's decision, even if it's not favorable to your own kind of integrity?
No. I don't understand. Is this
you're taking the party's platform now. I'm saying now that from all of our conversation, you've taken the party's manifesto now, and you're running with it.
Yes.
For whatever comes after it, you swim with it.
Yeah.
Against all odds.
I accept the position of the party. As a matter of fact, I was one of those who was involved in the drafting of the manifesto of the party. So I'm very much a part of everything that is in that manifesto.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, for joining us. I wish you luck in all your endeavors. Well, of course, the conversation continues on our different social media platforms, and in the coming days, we hope to welcome Nigeria's Vice President, Architect Nnamdi Sambo, who is the vice presidential candidate of the PDP. So we can hear from him also what his party has for Nigerians as we enter into the 2015 election. Well, that's how far we can go today on the program. On behalf of the team here at Channels Television Headquarters in Lagos, thank you, Professor Osinbajo, for joining us. I'm Yemi Osinbajo. Bye for now.
Thank you.